Hey everybody, Kelly here again to talk about metal. It's October 22nd, 2020, in case you forgot. And I'm out in the woods, my refuge. It's where I balance out the craziness of our world and my life at times. I have been getting more calls and texts from people who are starting to really struggle with depression. And so I'm feeling this urgency to try to come on a little more often and just give some messaging that may just hit that person. And if this message isn't for you, maybe you know someone this might help. And I really would encourage you to share this with them if you could, if this or something else. I, was running and, just really taking in my surroundings, listening to the way my feet were crunching on the leaves as I ran, listening to dogs barking, as you probably can hear, the crickets, you can maybe hear over my voice, and then really just looking at the spectacular show that we get at this time of year of colors, and then most importantly, my favorite part of days like today are when all the leaves just start to release and fall to the ground. And it's always the most beautiful, obvious symbol to me. So, I talk a lot about how nature is my guide in a time like this where, quite frankly, I don't really believe a whole lot about anything because we are going through such a transition that we really should be in a position of I don't know versus I'm right. And when we look at what's going on in media, in the news, election, it's all about being right, and with that, it actually prevents people from letting go. And then when you don't get to let go, you don't leave space for new ideas to come in. And so for me, when I'm watching these leaves just rain down, gracefully, from the trees, it's like a beautiful symbol to me of how we were meant to be. Seasonally, we are meant to sort of take inventory of what in our life we don't need anymore. Maybe ways that we speak to others, maybe habits that we have, maybe the neglect of ourselves. And, I'm going to sit, just so I'm not shaking this camera as much. So I just wanted to start talking a little bit about what metal pathology might look like for some of us. And when I say pathology, meaning where there might be an imbalance as it relates to this element in your mental, emotional, or physical system. So obviously not letting go usually means someone's holding on to something. They're trying to be right about something. Their ego might be in the way. So that's one way you could identify that. Another way to identify it would be on the physical side. You are, as I've talked about in a previous video, not getting enough breath in. You suddenly notice, wow, did I even take a breath today? I'm breathing rather shallowly and not even using the capacity of these great organs, that are here to literally give us life. We neglect them. Another way that pathology could show up, actually, as it relates to the lungs, is skin issues. So skin is the tissue that the lungs open up to. And so when we're grieving or when we're, again, holding on to something and not letting it go, it may come out through the skin. As you can see here, I've got some of that going on. I have a nice little breakout going on. Yes, could be from my mask that I wear all day with patients, but it also could be this. So for those of you that are not wearing masks all day, you may be seeing some breakouts in the skin. This is your body trying to say it's trying to release something and it's not coming out the way that it's meant to, and so it's looking for ways to come out. It's a great thing that our bodies can do that, but it's also a sign that maybe we need to check in a little bit more. Digestively, you are going to see constipation, or incomplete bowel movements. And this is, again, your body is holding on to something. It's not letting go. It's not releasing with ease. And as a result of that, things start to slow down and they start to have more difficulty in releasing. For others, it actually could be the opposite, where you're having loose stools, so there's Maybe you're letting go of things too easily. Maybe you are just saying, screw that, and you're not like taking another moment to look at the situation and say, how can I learn from this for myself? And so when we have sort of that escape through the body at times, sometimes it's a result of that. So those are some of the ways. So thinking about the lungs, it is the boundary. It's the boundary, the skin, which is the tissue that coordinates with the lungs. The skin is our boundary to the outside world. So boundaries are really, really important right now. And now in these next 2 weeks more than ever, is to have some boundaries around yourself to protect yourself. There is a lot more going on in the collective than we're used to. So some of us that might be more sensitive, some of us who might identify as being more empathic, sympathetic, empathetic people, you may be doing fine in your life, but what you're picking up on is this major collective shift and this energy that's a little what I would call sort of scattered, and it's sort of like this friction that's out there. And when we take that on, it does drain us, and it can start to affect things. So one of the other ways you can see an imbalance is insomnia. And specifically, we have a clock in the traditional Chinese medicine philosophy, and there's specific times that coordinate with different organs. So the time frame where you're going to see this is between 3 and 5 a.m. So if you find yourself waking up between 3 and 5 a.m., sometimes quite alert, and not able to fall back asleep, again, this is a sign there's some pathology going on in the metal aspects of your system. So I would take a look at those, take some inventory on this for yourself, and then what are some steps we can take to start working with that now? When we look at the classics of Chinese medicine, specifically the Yellow Emperor, it speaks of the physicians, the great physicians, sages, may we call them. They never treated pathology. They always actually treated 1 to 2 seasons ahead, so that people would not get sick. So the sage, the great doctor, actually was someone who had very few sick patients. He was just, or she was just there to, and I say he because likely it was a he, was just likely to just treat the natural system and support it to do what it's naturally meant to do. This day and age, we're way behind the mark. A lot of times we're catching up for 2 seasons behind, which in this year is very, very applicable. We obviously were not living the way we naturally would last spring, and so we're seeing some of that pathology right now. So I want to just give you a window into water. So water is our next season. It's the winter. I've already expressed, this is the time of year I'm a little concerned about for people, because there's been this buildup throughout this year already. And I am already starting to get the calls of people who are falling into depression, who are struggling with isolation, who are, not sleeping, and just a lot of habits are starting to get out of whack. So I just want to give you kind of some images. So water, what does water need? It needs boundaries. You don't have a body of water without a boundary. There needs to be a bottom and there needs to be sides to hold it. So a river is a great example. And what creates the bed of a river? Rock. Rock is metal in our medicine. So if you're not doing the work, your metal work now, you are not creating a pathway for that water to flow come winter. And when we think about winter, the water season, winter, it coordinates with the kidneys and the bladder. Obviously, you can imagine those organs have a lot to do with water and elimination. And it is a time, that, we go really deeply inward, no different than the animals. The animals, either disappear or migrate, or they hibernate, or they pass, unfortunately, due to food scarcity as the winter comes on. So it's important that we think ahead at what's coming and we prepare for that now. The hardest part about winter is the kidneys are the organ that coordinates with our will. You know what, the will to do something, the will to live. And when that's compromised, our will to do much really becomes compromised. So I want you to kind of get ahead of that. So you need to create some boundaries, metal, so your water can flow in a couple months. So things you can be doing, to support yourself. So mild movement, getting outside is extremely important, and starting to reflect with nature is one of my favorite things, because to me, it's instantaneous. Like I take 2 steps into the woods and I'm like, okay, I get it. I get where I am. I get what I need to hear. I see the way the world actually works. This stuff that we're getting, saturated with on, in media is actually just manipulation. It's not the truth. And you all know that. So what I'm noticing about a lot of us is we're getting sucked into it and not having boundaries around it. And it's really, really important you catch that behavior now. It's not serving you. One of the best things that we can be saying right now is, I don't know. Maybe there's another way. What else is there? What do I want to see? Because most of you who are on the left or the right, let's call it, because politics can make it easy, an easy example. Most of you also criticize politics, yet you're attaching yourself to parties and moving forward attached to that. And I really would caution you against that. It's going to lead you into a false place. This is a time where we should be letting go of all of that and really going inward to identify our own truth and allow your own truth to guide your process. And when you do that, this buzzy, chaotic, something's wrong energy starts to dissipate, and you start to feel strength. And when you start to feel strength in your own convictions, you move forward more confidently. And when you do that, you influence everyone around you. So, I'm as guilty. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here saying I'm some perfect human. I'm human, and I do the same things. But I do make it a priority to do things like this, where I walk through the woods and I watch the leaves gently fall from the trees to remind me of all the things that I could be gently letting go of and not holding on to for dear life. So, other things you could be doing. So we've talked about breathing. That's absolutely important. Getting out in nature, absolutely important. But sometimes we really don't know how to let go. And I want to offer you something that for some of you, this word may be triggering. Actually, 2 words, but specifically the act of praying. We tend to think of prayer as something, that immediately connects to religion. No. Religion happens to use prayer, but prayer is a natural surrendering to something higher than ourselves. You can use whatever word you like. I like to hand things over to the divine. That helps me because, as you've seen, I have some issues with my upbringing as someone who was raised Roman Catholic, and a lot of the dogma that surrounds that. Another story. I am letting go of it, trying. But I really do value prayer. I value handing things over to something higher than myself, and then listening for the guidance that's here within nature, that is here to support me. It's not uncommon for me to just enter the woods and immediately start crying. And I don't know why, but I trust that it's nature's way of supporting me to release when I don't know how to. Other things you can do is to put on some music that has some form of invocation that supports you to surrender. So that could be through movement and dance. It could be through singing and releasing things out in words. It could be in just really listening to the words and taking them in and allowing them to work on you. So that's what I got for today. I'm thinking about all of you. I wish I could have a megaphone that I could just have all this wonderful, positive, natural, rhythmic messaging you know, wired into your ears so you wouldn't suffer. Because it is suffering when we don't actually honor ourselves. And when we suffer, a lot of us are surrounded by others that notice it, and then they begin to suffer because you're their reflection. This is especially important for kids. Especially, they don't have all the language we have, and they don't have all the history that we've had, or the incidents where we've been through things and been able to come back from those difficult, hard moments. They don't always have all those tools. So you got to watch your energy, because they pick up on everything. There's nothing they don't pick up on. So what are you doing to create good boundaries for yourself and your home and your kids? What are you doing to love yourself and give yourself rest and reflection? And what are you doing, you know, to, you know, create pathways into this next season so that you thrive, you know, and you get stronger, and you connect with deeper parts of yourself that have never been completely brought to light. That's what's available. And I promise you that experience and that journey is going to be so much more fruitful, so much more beneficial to you and to everybody around you, and ultimately into this world. Most of us are feeling, those of us that are more, you know, identify with being an empath, or are sensitive or easily triggered, any of those things, you may also just be picking up on the collective energy of everybody processing right now. So do what you need to do and get to places where you can create a little space and, you know, and release some of that's not yours. All right, I think that's it for now. Hope you're doing all right. I will keep doing this. I plan to start offering some classes. I hope to do inexpensively. I've had people reaching out to me from out of state, and I've clarified with a lawyer that I can't be doing counseling because of my license outside of New Jersey. So my way around that is to teach. And so I'm going to do what I can between now and the end of the year to get some things going. And I welcome your messages. I welcome your feedback if something really helped, because if it helps you, then it probably helps someone else, and maybe that's something I could elaborate on. But if you think this could help someone, pass it along. All right. While I'll be posting this on Facebook, it'll also be posted on YouTube for those of you that have been courageous enough to leave the social media world. All right. Love you all. Happy metal.